hearts race.
And the crowd goes wild.
All across the nation, the dirt track warriors duke it out for what matters the most.
The trophy
and the glory. This is Gas and Glory, presented by R&R Enterprises.
And welcome back to Gas and Glory, the place where we talk about what matters the most, the trophy and the glory. It's Kyle Lueders and Neil Quick coming to you direct from the studios here at R&R Enterprises. And Neil, we kick off the month of July with it just being blistering hot, both with the action on the track and the temperature in our office and studio. How are you doing today, bud? Sweltering?
No, actually, it's pretty nice today. It's been sweltering, and fortunately, the AC's kicking, and it's being effective today.
Hey, you want to talk about that? My goodness gracious, we were sweating, and then we were cold, and then we were sweating, but I won't complain too much. We're pretty lucky.
No, we're ready to go. I'm ready for it to be summer and hot and heated and on the track and off the track.
It sounds like he's almost ready to do some arguing. We'll have Squeal or No Squeal coming up in just a little bit, along with an excellent interview with Mr. Brad Doty, Sprint Car Legend, TV analyst, and quite the active Twitter guy now, too. So very, very excited for Brad that he's picked up Twitter and he even got an iPhone. So even cooler.
Cool.
But we've got to talk about how Team R&R did this past weekend. Donnie Schatz, the man, continues his winning tear, wreaking havoc, if you will. He wins at 34 Raceway to move past Mark Kinzer for third all-time on the World of Outlaws STP Sprint Car Series win list. And then he backed it up with another win on Sunday night at Cedar Lake Speedway, his 8th win of the season, and Donnie Schatz leads the points now by 93 over Darren Pittman. Paul McMahon is 105 markers back. Joey Saldana, who picked up quick time at Beaver Dam Raceway and 34 Raceway this past weekend, is 143 back. All Team R&R drivers. We're very proud of that. But Neil, I posed this question to Brad in the interview that I had with him a little bit earlier, which you guys will hear in just a second, but I'm going to pose it to you. How scary is it that Donnie Schatz, who's notorious for getting hot really after the month of July kind of starts, how scary is it that he already has 8 wins and he's leading the points?
Well, I think we're starting to see him break out even earlier than he has in past years, and really impressive. I mean, these are wins that, especially up at 34 Raceway where he came from behind, started 11th, and the racing was actually exceptional up there. Track was working multiple grooves inside, outside, and he ended up winning up there. But I honestly think that they've got it together earlier than they have in the past summers, last couple summers, and I think that he's going to go into Knoxville and be as strong as ever.
As strong as ever, and then not to mention he's got a couple of big money shows coming up. The King's Royal, that's coming up here pretty soon at Eldora over in Ohio. The Don Martin Memorial Twin Features, the Silver Cup, that's coming up as well, too. It's the richest single day in World of Outlaws STP Sprint Car Series competition. And then you have the Summer Nationals at Williams Grove, so that's why they call it the month of money. It's
you also
coming
got
up.
The Ironman. That's a tough race, too, right before Nationals.
The Ironman's coming up as well, too. Neil's very correct. 55 laps around Federated Auto Parts Raceway at I-55. It's a task I wouldn't want to compete in November, let alone August in Missouri. Looking at you. But yeah, that's...
Don't look at me. I'm not strapping up and going for this.
You know what, Neil? I think if we could get a car together, I'll tell you, I'll make you a deal.
What?
If we can find some, and this is going out to anybody that's listening.
Oh, no.
If we can get together the resources to put together a car for Neil Quick for the Ironman 55, I will make you this deal, bud.
No.
I will make you this deal. If you'll crawl in, I will be your crew chief, and I'll even pay to get the shirts printed up. I know a guy.
Yeah, we kind of know a few guys that can print some shirts. No, I'm out on this.
Come on.
I retired a long time ago, buddy.
Come on, man.
I retired before I got to that stage even. I was smart. Baby.
I'm just saying the offer stands. I think I would be a phenomenal crew chief.
Well,
very much the shades of Harry from Days of Thunder.
I think
I'd be eating ice cream while you're racing.
I think that your crew chief capabilities would be about the same as my driving abilities in this case. I think
exceptional. There we go. Moving on.
Oh, I'm telling you.
Rico Abra was second at
We need to scratch that whole part out.
Really, folks. Somebody wants to donate the car. You got a driver and a crew chief. Moving right along.
Oh, no.
Rico Abrams, second place at the Dirt Cup at Skagit Speedway up in Washington. The Dirt Cup, one of the great races in all of open wheel motorsports. Steve Beitler and his staff up at Skagit do a phenomenal job. And sometimes Mother Nature gets in the way of it, but they once again put on a great show for all the fans and the competitors up there. And then Rico also won another race in Medford, Oregon. So that was great. Good to see Rico winning. Kenny Wallace continues on the Hell Tour. He finished 6th at Lincoln in Illinois, so very cool. The Herminator is rocking and rolling throughout these summer months, staying very busy between that and his television commitments. And we need to touch base on this just a little bit. We'd like to congratulate all of the Team R&R drivers on an awesome weekend. These are just a few of the folks that we work with, and it's truly a blast, and we appreciate them. But one thing I wanted to get to, Neil, before we bring in Brad Doty, that interview I got the chance to have with him a little bit earlier, is it was a tough week for Rex for Bobby Pierce, Jason Fager, and Brad Sweet, as they all ended up with junked-up race cars. And I want to talk about the late models first with Bobby Pierce and Jason Fager. That is very scary when you see a late model, big, heavy, low to the ground wide. When those things get upside down, it's a rarity, and it's a bit scary.
No, there are a lot of sheet metal and a lot of plastic parts, and I'm going to tell you, when they do get upside down, I mean, it's kind of like a shredder effect. It looks like a tornado almost. I mean, the parts are flying, and they look very vicious when they wreck, and they are very rare that you see them get upside down. But I think a little bit of what we're seeing is, I mean, cars and technology, and these guys are really building these cars where they actually have a lot of body roll, and that's due to the suspension and stuff like that. And you're looking at two cars that were hooked up on a track that was hooked up, and you're going to get some of this that we saw.
It comes back to that principle of pushing the edge, and then finally going over.
Yeah, they've found the edge, and now they're starting to push it over. And as that happens, the fortunate thing about the late models and even in sprint cars we're going to talk about is the idea that the safety and equipment on that side has really become a big thing to keep the driver safe. Luckily, we're talking about torn up race cars instead of injured drivers. So.
Well, the safety has just, I mean, it's phenomenal. I look back on the pictures of when I had uncles and great uncles racing. Roll cages have come so far.
Well, they came, first of all.
They came, yeah, you are right.
They started there.
You talk about the old-time sprint car races. I mean, it was a windshield and a guy. There was, like, no roll cage. There was nothing.
Right.
And then you've moved on and forward with that. And then you've added in the head and neck restraint system. I read a great article just the other day about Jack Elam and J&J Auto Racing and what they have done partnering up with the seat manufacturers to make sure that the seats fit in all their chassis, no matter who makes the seat, fits in there great. Works very well for your belts, because belts are almost really your first line of defense in a race car as far as safety is concerned. If those belts aren't in there the way they need to be, they're not done properly, you're in a world of hurt from the get-go.
Yeah, it can be catastrophic.
And so many safety advances, and you really saw that come into play with Brad Sweet's accident. We'll throw up a picture of the what was left of the number 49 SurePoint Medical Casey Kane Racing Sprinter. Neil, you and I both have been around sprint cars for a very long time. Have you ever seen a car split in half quite like that?
No, it was kind of odd to look at it and just seeing what footage was out there, which was pretty brief of it, and wondering how and what caused the car to come apart like that. And first instincts when you see something like that, your stomach drops, your heart drops. You're looking at the idea, hoping for the best, because in a situation like that, it looks very dire. But fortunately, again, the safety and equipment of the cars in this case prevailed again, and I think there's a lot to be said about sprint car racing. I think there's a lot of ongoing safety things going on, especially since the deal when Tony got hurt at Oski last year. I think that Tony and some of the manufacturers are really looking at the sprint cars and trying to do something better. But this was an oddity to see a car split and break like this, and I'm sure they'll go back and they'll review it and look at it and dissect it to see what caused and what they can do in the future to make the car better in this case.
I remember quite a bit in 2012 when we had a wrecked race car, and this is how I want to talk about the team aspect of it, because those guys, that was the first of a triple header weekend. Mm-hmm. They had to go from Iowa up to Wisconsin overnight. So you have a crew here that's got two halves of a race car. Their driver, thankfully, is okay, and everybody here at R&R is very happy that Brad Sweet is okay after that vicious crash. But now you're looking at it and you go, all right, what can we salvage from this? How can we get it in a trailer? And what are we going to have to do to be able to race the next night? And that car was a total loss. I mean, the frame was gone. You've got bent-up wings. I didn't really get a good look at the motor, but I'm willing to bet that there was probably some damage to the engine itself. But you're basically looking at pulling down a brand-new car, putting a brand-new car together and going racing. And, oh, by the way, you want to know how they did? They won. Well, they won the night after they split 1 and 2.
Well, and that's just amazing. I mean, as another driver showing up or fans after hearing this deal on Friday night and then showing up in Wisconsin and seeing Brad Sweet there and racing in a car is an amazing feat for himself and for the crew. And by all means, taking and putting the thing in victory lane. I mean, you can't say much more about it. I mean, that's pretty impressive, man.
You know, they call Brad Sweet the big cat.
Yeah.
You notice that.
Yep.
He displayed a lot of courage.
Oh, yeah.
Getting back in the seat one night after a horrific accident. And just psychologically, I haven't driven that much. I haven't driven as much as you have. But I can only imagine coming back after a wreck like that. That has to sit in the back of your mind somewhere when you stand on the gas for the first time right after that has happened.
Well, the thing about it is definitely get back in the saddle is the best remedy to fix that. But you do have those thoughts, and, I mean, as any race car driver, as you get older, those thoughts get heavier. So I think that it's impressive for him to go out and do that, and a heck of a confidence booster to kind of wipe that out of his head completely. So I think that coming out and winning the next night pretty well erases that. You still have a little bit of that in your thoughts, but, hey, I can do this. I can put this car in victory lane, and I'm sure he knows what caused it and what situation was there to cause it. So that'll be something for him to think about and to put aside and go out and win races.
Well, it was very impressive to see. And speaking of things that are impressive, coming up next, folks, I got the chance earlier to catch up with an awesome sprint car driver, awesome television analyst, and all-around good guy, Brad Doty. You've got to hear this interview. We touched on a number of topics. Give this a listen. And at this time, we'd like to welcome in legendary sprint car driver, television analyst, and Twitter man extraordinaire. It's Mr. Brad Doty. Welcome to Gas and Glory, Brad.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
No, we appreciate it very much. And you are in the hotbed of racing right now, my friend. Ohio Sprint Speedweek just wraps up, and then a little race called the Brad Doty Classic coming up in about a week, and then the King's Royal. So first off, we wanted to ask you, how was Ohio Sprint Speedweek? I know that there were a few nights that were rained out, but it really seemed like the competition and the car counts were just through the roof this year.
Yeah, they really were. Yeah, unfortunately, rain took a few of them out, but I guess Dale Blaney obviously winning 4 races was, on top of things. He's having a heck of a year, but yeah, I believe it was 62 cars at Atomic Speedway.
Wow.
So, yeah, and at Lima, gosh, I can't remember off the top of my head. It's around 50 or so, I believe, at Lima on Friday night. So, yeah, it's been a good car count, good crowds, and just absolutely good racing, no doubt about it.
Well, we like to see that. Good car counts, good crowds, and I'd like to shift gears here just a little bit. We'll get back to Ohio, but we're talking about the summer months and things being great. Since the summer is beginning to heat up a little bit, how scary is it that Donnie Schatz has 8 wins already and counting?
Yeah, anybody that follows the World Outlaws sprint cars pretty much knows that he's kind of known to be a slow starter. And boy, when the track starts slicking off in midsummer, and he and crew chief Ricky Warner have a great setup where they can roll right through the slick part of the racetrack, and Donnie does a great job of what we call pedaling, where he runs the throttle and the brake pedal at the same time and keeps the car loaded up on the suspension, keeps the car running straight, feathers the throttle, and we've just talked about Dale Blaney. Those two guys, Donnie Kreitz, obviously very good at Williams Grove, but Schatz and Blaney have proven they can go to different racetracks around and know how to pedal the car when it gets slick. So yeah, for Schatz to be leading the points now and having 8 wins, as you said already, to get hit this time of the season, people could be in trouble, and especially as competitive as things are. And I just finished my column for Sprint Car and Midget Racing about how hard it is for cars to come from the back, and this day and age because of the quality of equipment. But yet, remember, he won 23 races last year and came out of the B to win the Nationals, so it can definitely be done. So I bet there's a lot of people scratching their heads that, probably nervous that they're going so well this time of year.
Yeah, you mentioned that, scratching your head a little bit, and I'd like to pick your brain just a little bit because you had a phenomenal season back in the late 80s, but there was a guy that was always he just seemed to be a little bit ahead of you in Steve Kinzer. I believe that year Steve won over 40 races, and you finished second to him, I think 20 sometimes. How frustrating is that as a competitor to just see that guy no matter, and you're working your guts out. How difficult is it, how demoralizing is it to just see that guy be just a touch better multiple times during the season?
It's tough. I mean, it's very demoralizing, and it's really hard to, and especially looking back. I mean, you can, and I'm sure Steve and Carl at the time were just smiling all the way at the bank because, you can get down on yourself and be almost beat before you even get to the racetrack. But those guys just always figured out a way, and Schatz and Ricky do this time of year as well. And my goodness, when you have, like I said, back in Steve's day, when I finished second to him in '87, which you mentioned, that's my best season ever. Yeah, he won 46 or 47 races, and I believe it was 26 out of the last 27 races of the year.
Mm-hmm.
He won, and I won immediately 4 races that year and won second in the championship. So, it's tough. But the equipment they definitely, Steve and Carl had great equipment, probably had way more horsepower than not a lot, not necessarily me, but a lot of, most of the cars in the field, and they had superior equipment to probably half the field, where nowadays, I think it's tougher for a driver to win races because of the quality of the equipment and everybody being so equal. So, it's tough for a driver to, and the team for that matter, to keep working hard, especially the heat of the summer when you're tired. You got to go to another race, and that's when you got to really dig deep though, and take have a gut check to say how bad do I really want this from the driver on down throughout the whole team. To keep motivated and keep going and keep pushing forward.
Yeah, it must take a lot of motivation to keep showing up at the track and just to know that guy's just a touch better than you. But speaking of being just a touch better, you've really turned into quite the promoter here. The Brad Doty Classic each year in Ohio has become one of the marquee events, I would say, in sprint car racing for the 410s. You go up and down the pit area that night, now in Lima, Ohio. It used to be at Attica Raceway Park. And the guys are jazzed up. There's an added level of excitement, urgency, and seriousness all at the same time because it has become an event that is a must-win event. So what I'd like you to do is describe how that event got started and how has it grown throughout the years. You've been doing it 20-plus years now.
Yeah, the race started, I was paralyzed in a racing accident in 1988, July of 1988 at Eldora Speedway, and in 1989, actually an organization, it was the United Sprint Association, a new organization had started, and they actually leased the racetrack from the folks at Attica Raceway Park, who one of the partners at that time at Attica used to build my engines when I first started racing here in Ohio. So he and I went back a long time, and so to try to make a long story short, they leased the racetrack, and it was going to be a benefit race for my family and me after my accident. Well, then USA folded, went away after that first year, and all the people at Attica Raceway Park called me and wanted to know if not only did ask if I would mind, but I was proud that they even offered, but they wanted to rename the race the Brad Doty Classic, basically in memory of me and my career and in honor of my career, and I was flattered. Said, heck yeah. So the race went along that way for many, many years. It grew and grew throughout the years, and I had no direct connection to the race. I always went, always did an interview in front of the fans and talked to people and supported the event, but never really was directly affected by it or part of it until 2005 when Attica had Gene Franker, who was one of the original partners in the track. He basically ended up with it on his own throughout the years. Other partners had left, and he ended up selling the lease to a couple different people with Janet Holbrook, who owns the CH-83 car now. Mm-hmm. She promoted Attica in 2005, and I don't even know how it came about. She approached me or what happened, but we made an agreement that I would become a 50-50 partner in the event. We got the World of Outlaws to sanction it for the first time, and I was working for the Outdoor Channel, the TV broadcast at that time, and they agreed to televise it. So we did that, ran it. In my first parlay as a promoter was in 2005. Within the end of that year, she lost the lease. There was some uncertainty on who was going to run the track, even if it was going to be released. We needed to get on the schedule with the Outlaws, and Gene Franker, who was the promoter at Attica, had been hired to go down to Lima Land in Lima, Ohio, to do their track prep. And so Gene asked me if I would consider moving the event. And, just after 1 year of only really being involved, there were a lot of decisions to be made, a lot of pressure put on, what we were going to do. And like I said, till that year prior, I really had no affiliation with the race. So yes, we moved it to Lima, to Lima Land Motorsports Park, and it's been there ever since. And it's been a great partnership with Dr. Jeff Jarvis and Bob Fricke, and like I said, Gene Franker's doing the track prep down there. So it's been good. Everything's fallen into place for this year. As any promoter will tell you, the worry is weather, and everything else we have people working very hard at. Everybody does their job, and I have no worries whatsoever about the event itself, and the way it's ran and the competitors that we're going to have and that kind of thing. It's just worrying about that darn weather.
Yeah, the weather's about the only thing you can't control there, and I remember being there in 2012 with Stevie Smith in the 19 car, and we were leading that race towards the end, and just the excitement that you see with the crowd. The racing service at Lima Land is always prepared very well, even when inclement weather tends to wreak havoc on the area, as it can. The folks at Lima Land do a phenomenal job getting things ready to rock and roll. And speaking to that, we're ready for the 2014 edition. Give me 2 or 3 drivers that you're looking at to be successful when it comes time for the Brad Doty Classic.
Oh, wow. That's tough. It is. I guess that's the really neat thing about, and this isn't just a promoter talking either. I mean, it's a quarter-mile high-banked, little racy bull ring, and it literally could be anybody's game. I mean, these guys, it's 40 laps, and it's elbows up, high-banked off the wall, and there's usually a bottom groove, and guys can diamond the corner, go in high and turn it and come down off the banking, and so it's great racing. Honestly, I don't think there's any one driver that you can put your finger on that you can say has an advantage because of the variables, because of the banking, because of the short track and the lap traffic and that kind of thing. And so often the last 10 laps of that race, things change dramatically. I mean, we had a couple of years where we had last lap lead changes, and so it's I really, for one, I don't want to put myself in position of choosing a favorite or choosing.
Yeah.
I get asked, especially for that event, I get asked that on TV sometimes, or to make a pick. And as I like to say, if these guys are out there racing in tennis shoes and all they had to worry about was blowing out a tennis shoe, or nothing mechanical to break down or a race car under them, I might be more apt to bet or pick a guy. But when there's too many variables for that night, I can just tell people it's going to be a great race. It's no question in my mind, and I'm hoping to have 40 to 50 cars, and it'll obviously be a great race. I'm just looking forward to it.
Yeah, very spoken like a true legend and promoter right there. We're talking with Brad Doty here on Gas and Glory, and let's shift gears a little bit. You had your promoter hat on. Let's put your television analyst hat on. You got your start back in the day working, I believe, down in Arizona, down in the Winter Series, and it's just kind of evolved from there. Give us a brief history of Brad Doty on television, because I know I speak for a lot of fans when we sit here and go that Brad Doty is pretty much the guy that we know when it comes to being the color analyst on all the great TV productions we see for sprint cars.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and it was just kind of luck. Things fell into place. The TV, the Winter Series, had started at Manzanita Speedway in 92, 93, I believe, and the winter of 92, 93, and Jeff Swindell was doing the color that first year, and then they did the racing. It was 10 races in a row. They moved it to Canyon Speedway the following year, and Jeff, as any active driver would want to do, he was able to get a ride and race the series the next year, and I was told he recommended me for the job, and they called me up, wanted to know if I'd give it a try. And at that time, I hadn't really. That was my accident. I hadn't been on an airplane, had flown, been in a wheelchair, hadn't rented a car yet. A lot of unknowns, I guess. But it's something that I knew if I turned it down, I would probably regret the rest of my life. And it was a big. I'll admit, it was a big challenge mentally and physically. Those first few weekends to do it, and I am so glad that I did.
And we are too. Trust me, we are too.
Well, thanks. And like I said, it just dumb luck. It just fell into place. And one thing, I had no TV experience other than as a driver being interviewed. And I do remember there's some old timers. See how many old timers are listening. But the Diamond P production stuff in the early years, and there was a Hidden Heroes segment that they did back. I believe it would have been on even TNN back early on. But Steve Evans and Brock Yates were doing all the sprint car TV, and I remember those guys doing an interview with me one time, and when we went off camera, they kind of looked at each other, and Brock Yates was, Steve Evans was a great drag racing announcer and really good TV guy. He's been around drag racing forever, and like I said, he promoted some drag racing. And Brock Yates actually co-wrote the Cannonball Run movie back in the 80s. Was, I believe, the editor of Car and Driver magazine. So the guy and did a lot of TV. So both these guys had a lot of credibility, is my point. And they both looked at each other and told me that I ought to consider a career in TV whenever I quit driving. They basically told me that they thought I did a good job in my interviews and stuff on TV. Well, I can tell you, being a driver and being interviewed is one thing. Being the interviewer or being an analyst, it's totally different, because when I was being interviewed as a driver, chances are I had my fire suit on. I was in my element. It felt comfortable. All I had to do was answer their questions. I didn't have to think. I just answered their questions. Well, when you get on the other side of it, and you're the one either having to ask the questions or analyze something, it's a whole different deal. But that first night in live TV, I mean, this was all live back then. I had no formal training, no instruction whatsoever. Just said, we're going to go on at this time. You got to be in the booth. And I found out, 10 seconds in TV is eternity, because, we're a couple minutes from going live TV. And at that time, it was Mike Joy, who does the NASCAR races on Fox now, and Dick Bergen and myself in the booth. And I don't even think they had their headsets on yet. And then, we're counting down 30 seconds to go, and they're laughing and joking. And finally, 20 seconds to go, they put their headset on and get serious, and away we go. And there was Legends cars running with the sprint cars, and there was a crash. And I saw a replay, and I saw a radius rod was broken on one of the cars that probably caused the crash, and I was able to point that out on the replay. And it's something that stuck to me to this day, because they both, when we went to commercial, that was perfect. That's the kind of stuff that we want to hear from you. That's the kind, we didn't even see that. It takes a former competitor, driver, whatever if it's golf, if it's baseball. I think the broadcast is better if they have a former player or somebody, a participant in the booth. So anyway, that stuck with me. That they pointed out that that's the kind of stuff we want from you, and I'll have to admit I seem to have a pretty good knack at noticing stuff like that, and it's been, like I said, everything just fell into place, and it's been going on for way longer than I ever predicted it ever would, and I'm just happy to be riding along.
He certainly do some amazing stuff, from TNN to the Outdoor Channel, Speed, now the CBS Sports Network. One staple of sprint cars on television has been Brad Doty. It's who we're talking to here on Gas and Glory. And Brad, before we get you on out of here, because we've kept you for quite a while, and we do appreciate you taking the time with us, but give us some of your thoughts on the future of sprint car racing from the way that the sport is covered, since you are a broadcaster, but also give us a perspective as a competitor. I mean, it's probably more equal now than it's ever been. Do you see that trend continuing, and what do you maybe see for the coverage of the sport?
Well, obviously I'd like to see more coverage. We at its peak, I think we did like 18 live TV races on TNN for a couple of years there, and with the Outdoor Channel stuff, which, looking back, a lot of it was tape delayed, but we did like 35 shows each year for 3 years, and a lot of people complained that it was tape delayed and it aired on Wednesday night, and we needed more live TV and so on and so forth. And the old saying, "Careful what you wish for," because it just takes a tremendous amount of money to do TV, and it's like owning a race team. It's an ongoing battle to find that money and the advertising. So from a selfish standpoint, I wish there were more TV races. I'd be busier, have more work, and it'd definitely be better for the sport, the team owners, and potential sponsors. So I just have my fingers crossed that that'll happen. As far as the quality of the cars, and I don't see that changing. I just did an interview a week or two ago, and again, the cars are just so equal, and I don't think it's the rules that has put everything in a box to where, some can argue that the tire rule, everybody's running the same tire, and if they had more tire choices and brands, the racing might be better, and that may be true, but I'm not sure if it's worth it for car owners to have to go out and spend more and more money for different brands of tires for different racetracks. That's an argument I guess we don't have time to go into, but as far as the equality, I don't see that changing. And yes, I think it's tougher and tougher for a driver, but the good drivers, I think, should be smiling, because when the cars and the equipment is so equal, it comes back to the crew chief and the driver doing their job, and the guy that makes the least amount of mistakes may be the one that's standing in victory lane at the end of the night.
Well, he makes a case for it, the best driver and the best crew chief. And once again, a phenomenal guy himself. Brad, thank you so very much for taking the time here on Gas and Glory, and best of luck with you with the Brad Doty Classic, and we hope to be talking with you again very soon.
All right, Kyle, thanks for having me on and getting the word out about our event next week. Thank you.
And wow, Brad is someone that you could just spend days talking to, Neil, and we're so very thankful that he came on Gas and Glory, and just wow's all you can really say. Wealth of knowledge, and he always brings a unique perspective every time you talk to him.
Absolutely. One of the drivers in the sport and commentators that just you can't spend enough time picking their brain. Just an encyclopedia and all-around great guy. I mean, Brad Doty is a stand-up guy, man.
Class act. We'll go with that. And on that note, it's time to take a look at what's coming up, the big 4th of July weekend. Are you excited there, Neil? You got some fireworks? You got some black cat, some sparklers, smoke bombs? Got some of that?
Remember those little snake things that used to light that come out of the box?
Those things.
Oh, those things were cool.
No, those weren't exciting.
How about those fireworks you shot up and the little guy come out in the parachute? Half the time he was on fire.
I do like those. Yes, I do like those. And then, there were some other things that we did back in the day.
Did you ever shoot bottle rockets at each other?
I wasn't going to go there. I was going to say Roman candles. But children, if you're listening.
Roman candles? They shoot too much fire.
Children, if you're listening, do not do that. Make sure that anytime you use fireworks, your parental units or somebody much older than you is around to supervise. Anyway.
Just not us.
Yeah, probably not a good idea. Yeah. All right. Moving right along. The Outlaws saddle up for the Boot Hill Showdown, where Donnie Schatz and Darren Pittman won last year in Dodge City. My home track when it comes to the World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series. It's about an hour from where I'm from, so looking forward to that. It's always, just the references from being a PR and marketing person. You got Outlaws and you got Boot Hill. Wild, Wild West. It's excellent. It's easy promotion. Moving right along. Speaking of moving on, the Hell Tour rolls on for Bobby Pierce, Kenny Wallace, and so many more. Jackson Speedway, LaSalle Speedway, Fayette County Speedway, all those great places are coming up. Power Eye is at Angel Park for the Pepsi Nationals.
That'll be a good one.
Exciting midget racing that away. And then the other cool thing, Neil, is that with it being Independence Day, the 4th being on a Friday night, local tracks this weekend are going to just be hopping with fireworks, great car counts. If you're in the area and you're not going to the lake, you're not doing something like that, or even if you are, go and support a local track because this is one of their biggest nights of the year. It's the Independence Day holiday weekend. Go out and support local tracks.
Absolutely. Get out there and soak up some of the sun and definitely smell some of the methanol and alcohol and have some fun.
Have I ever told you that if they could
drink some too?
No, I wasn't going to go there. That's
okay.
Poisonous.
Yeah, I know.
But if they could have ever made or could ever make a woman's perfume that smelled like methanol,
okay,
I'd be in.
Sure.
I think that's just the way to go.
Didn't they used to make a commercial? There was a commercial about that.
Jeremy Mayfield with a Dodge commercial. Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
His 5 minutes of fame.
Yeah, been a little longer than that. But,
okay.
And now that we continue to roll on, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for my favorite segment of the show each and every week.
Not so fun part for me.
Squeal or no squeal. Ladies and gentlemen, each and every week we pose 3 racing-related questions, and the answers must be given in a form of a squeal if Neil and I agree with the question, or no squeal if we don't. Normally we have Lindsay in here and she takes care of it for us.
We need to keep a count of the shows and how many times we've agreed, because I don't think that's happened recently.
I don't think it's happened very much either, but we may just have to give it a shot. But as I was saying, Lindsay couldn't make it this week, so
how about you go first this week?
I'll tell you what. I will ask the question, let you answer first, and then you ask the next question.
Okay.
And we'll just kind of go back and forth. How's that sound?
I'm good with that. Let's go.
All right. Question number 1 for squeal or no squeal. At this point, after winning the Ohio Sprint Speedweek title in dominating fashion, is Dale Blaney an odds-on favorite to win the Brad Doty Classic and the Kings Royal? Squeal or no squeal?
I have to go squeal with 50% on this. I can see the Doty, but I'm not so sure on the Kings Royal.
Okay. Why don't you think on the big, fast, high banks of Eldora?
Well, I think that honestly, the program in the car he's got suited for the smaller tracks. The bigger tracks like Eldora, I think there's a lot of guys that bring some power to that type of deal event, especially World of Outlaws and the motors these guys got. I think that Dale's a little bit outmatched in that category when it comes to Eldora, but he can prove me wrong.
I'm going to go squeal with that as well. So we are going to agree on question number 1. I don't think that there is a better driver in the state of Ohio right now than Dale Blaney, and he proved that during the Ohio Sprint Speedweek.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I don't even think he was nowhere but the front the entire week. So that was very exciting to see, and Dale's won the Kings Royal in the past. He's won the Brad Doty Classic in the past. This guy knows how to get it done, and he and George Fisher, although working with a new car owner this year, just as fast as they were the past couple of years. So I'm going to go with you. I think the Kings Royal might be a bit of a stretch, but I definitely look for him to be a huge factor in the Brad Doty Classic.
I agree with you on that one.
All right.
First for everything.
Oh, gosh.
All right, I get to ask the second question, right?
Okay.
Dirt late model racing has more crown jewel events than any other dirt form of dirt racing.
I'm going to go squeal on that one because if you look at the schedule and you see 50,000, 50,000, 20,000, 30,000 to win, you have more big money races. And to me, a crown jewel event anymore, maybe not this way so much in the past, but a crown jewel event now really is defined by what it pays to the winner. And if we're going by that metric, I would say that dirt late model racing has more than just about anybody else. I would go I would go as far as to say dirt late model racing has more crown jewel events than any other form of dirt track racing.
I'll definitely go squeal. Same thing. This is two agreements with two questions. It's kind of impressive, actually.
We're on a roll. I think it was Chip. She was the reason we were disagreeing.
Absolutely.
All right, yeah.
No, same thing as what you're saying. I mean, this is a topic that's been brought up more than once around the office here, and I'm going to tell you, late model events, big money, more events out there. It's always been brought up in comparison to sprint car racing and different other forms of dirt racing.
All right, last question. Will we go a perfect 3-4-3? Normally it's 3 where we disagree. Today we're on an agreement roll. I guess that's what you could call it. I don't know.
Time for a disagreement.
Oh, yeah, this one might do it. NASCAR's new chase format will produce, and by the new chase format, we're talking about when it comes down to deciding the champion, 1 race, 4 drivers, winner take all at Homestead. Will that produce big TV ratings? Squeal or no squeal?
No squeal.
Oh, okay. All right, folks.
I think they're in the same doldrum that they've been in for the past how many years they've had the chase.
Really? Okay. So the winner take all.
Yeah.
Doesn't
do it for me.
Oh.
The guy that's going to win the championship at the last race of the year is a guy that got hot at that time of the year. I mean, I think that race,
that's historically done well at Homestead.
Absolutely. I think this is a bad part on NASCAR, and I do not agree with the chase format this year, and it's a matter of my opinion. I'm not a big fan of this.
I'm going to go squeal on this for producing big TV ratings because it will create that moment, that Game 7 type feel that they're going for. Now, I will preface it by saying this. I don't agree with what NASCAR did in the chase format either. They're trying to emulate stick and ball sports. Your football, your baseball, your basketball. But here's the thing. Here's my problem with it. Okay? If you and I go to play basketball at Madison Square Garden and the Staples Center, the venue is different. The surface, what we're playing on, doesn't change.
Right.
When you go to play in the Super Bowl, you're playing on either turf or grass. You've done it. Racing, the tracks vary so much. So you could have barely eked in, and if you have an awesome setup for Homestead, you can win the championship now. Is that really fair? Not in my opinion.
I don't think so either, and I think that
that would be like saying in sprint car racing, we're going to run all year, and then we're going to go to Knoxville to decide the champion, or we're going to go to Eldora to decide the champion.
I'm telling you, I totally disagree with this deal. And I mean, as ratings go, I mean, I'm sure it's going to be a big push for this first year, which God knows they need it. But in turn in racing and what it's all about, at the end of the year, the guy that's performed best of the year throughout doesn't win the championship.
I mean, you could blow a tire on lap 2, and that's it.
You're right.
You could blow a rod in the motor on lap 43. That's it.
I guess I'm old school in this category when it comes to NASCAR. I say go back to the way it was way before Chase.
Yes. I would even be for ending the season in Atlanta again.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was fun. I know the TV types, the media types, they don't want to do that. Oh, and by the way, put a road course in the Chase. All right, we're going to talk about
by the way, why don't we open up some of the old tracks that made NASCAR? I mean, why don't we go back to some of those
North
venues?
Wilkesboro comes to mind.
Rockingham, North Wilkesboro.
You know, Rockingham, when we get the chance to run iRacing, you and I just have a ball at Rockingham.
That's one of our favorite tracks.
You're beating and banging around that track. The thing's sitting there just hopping. There's so many bumps in it. They talked about Kentucky being bumpy. A lot of those drivers must not remember Rockingham because Rockingham, the car never settles down.
Well, it's just going back and looking at the idea of those are tracks that were driver's tracks. I mean, Wilkesboro, same thing. I mean, you're going up and down an elevation change, going uphill down the back straightaway and coming downhill down into turn 1. I mean, it's a driver's track, and I understand that NASCAR decided they wanted to get big and go to these new huge cookie cutter facilities that had 100,000 grandstand type settings. It's not that big right now. Go back.
We understand why they had to do it, but I guess the purists in us, the racers in us, would rather see something like the old days. But that's why we're not in charge of making the big decisions. That's why we're just here talking to you guys.
Just having a little fun.
We want to thank you guys for tuning in to Gas and Glory. And remember, you can pick up several drivers' gear over at www.r-rracewear.com, the web's largest store for dirt track racing apparel and merchandise. And on behalf of everyone here at R&R Enterprises, he's Neil Quick and I'm Kyle Lueders. And we'll see you next week.
You've been listening to Gas and Glory, presented by R&R Enterprises. All rights reserved. Please visit the web's largest sprint car store today at www.r-rracewear.com. The views and opinions expressed in the show are the host and guest alone and do not directly reflect those of R&R Enterprises.